The Michael Berry Show.
State Representative Brian Harrison is our guest. Representative, I know y'all are in session this morning and you stepped out to join us for a moment, but you've been quite in the news of late. Folks are working hard, have worked hard across the state to win each and every of the 88 out of 150 state rep seats to get a majority so that we can get bills passed every 2 years. And now we're in that brief window to make our state better. And yet the Republicans in charge are taking orders from the Democrats and screwing everything up. And you've blown the whistle on us. Catch people up assuming they know nothing of what's going on in that mess of a hellhole in Austin.
Hellhole's right. Cesspool, swamp, sewer, gutter. It's all
cesspool,
those things.
Cesspool was what I was looking for. It didn't come to me. Yeah, cesspool.
Incestuous cesspool is what I usually call the Austin swamp. But good morning, my friend Michael Berry. Talking to you live from the epicenter of that cesspool. To catch people up, because I want to start by saying thank you. I want to thank you to the voters of Texas who did your job. You went to the ballot last March and last November. You pushed the button to elect Republicans, probably Republicans that promised you they were going to be a conservative fighter and vote for small government and stand up to the liberal Democrats. They told you those things. You believed them. You voted for them. You elected them. You gave Republicans the governor's mansion, lieutenant governor's office, big majorities in the House and the Senate. And what'd they do? I'll tell you what they did. They sold you out. The Republicans that said they're going to stand up to the Democrats when you weren't looking, after you elected them, they voted to put those very Democrats in charge of the Texas House. And then they colluded with them to destroy liberty, grow government, increase spending, increase taxes, and push socialism. And as a result of that, to give you more color, how that happened, Republicans have an 88-seat majority, or 88 seats in the Texas House out of 150. That means we got a 26-seat majority, a massive majority that the voters gave us for Republicans. Well, 30-something of those Republicans, so-called sellout rhinos, they cut a deal with 50 Democrats to take over the chamber. So 50 Democrats actually control the Texas House. So even though Texas voters elected Donald Trump by 14 points, the Biden-Harris caucus is holding hostage the Texas legislature. And what that means is, instead of doing the things that y'all want us to do, like return that $24 billion surplus to you so we can get our property taxes under control and ultimately eliminated, passing real school choice so parents can pull their kids out of failing government schools if they are trapped in one of those failing government schools and into a school that serves their needs, or to reduce regulations to finally stop the billions of your tax dollars that the Texas government is using to fund DEI and promote liberal gender ideology. Instead of doing any of that, the Texas House has passed into law 0 bills. But we created Pakistan Day, Zoroastrianism Day, and we spent 3 days on the floor talking about Beyonce. And I only say that actually not to joke, but just to give folks a little bit of color at the level of total betrayal that the voters of Texas are suffering at the hands of the so-called Republicans.
Was it early Beyonce, like Destiny's Child, or was it the later sort of country incarnation?
It was the country, which is insult to injury, and I actually kind of felt bad for the other two. No one, I don't even remember their names. The other two, Destiny's Child.
But do you remember the black dude that did the Our Town? I'm going down to the town. What was that, Ramon? You remember that? I kind of liked that. That was a crossover that had an appeal to me.
Early days.
No, it's just a few years ago. He had a huge hit, and they gussied him up like a cowboy, but he looked more like Wiz Khalifa, huh? Was it Lil Nas? Is this it? Okay, here we go. Listen to this, Brandon. Oh, no. It's not dirty. It was a huge hit. It was called Our Town or The Town or Going Down to the Town or something. And it was kind of a parody of. But Brian Harrison, on a serious note, these Republicans are not accomplishing anything, right? Like none of there's no tax reform, none of it, right?
Well, let me tell you unfortunately, what we're going to accomplish once we finally start doing anything, which, by the way, we had our first Friday. After 11 weeks, we've had long weekends every week. They're unconstitutional long weekends. We had a Friday last week. I walk on the floor. Less than half the members even bothered to show up. And the speaker proceeded to break the Constitution and declared we had a quorum of 100 members when there weren't barely 60 on the floor. So he's violating the Constitution. He's breaking the House rules to do one thing that we're probably going to do, and that's pass a budget that, quite frankly, that budget needs to stop. That's one thing we should not do. This is the most bloated liberal budget in the history of Texas. And our liberal rhino sellout speaker let the Democrats, I'm not joking, Democrat committee chairs in the Texas House write the budget, not in open appropriations hearings with the cameras on, but he let his Democrat chairman write the budget in secret, in rooms that have no cameras, no microphones, so the public is not available to see it. And by the way, that's a direct violation of the House rules. So he let the budget be written by Democrats.
20 hours to vote, to supposedly read it and vote?
Yeah. They emailed it to us and then forced us on the committee to vote on it 20 hours. I printed the whole darn thing out, plopped it on the dais, and put a sign under it with an arrow pointing to the massive stack of paper saying, this is the budget that nobody has read. And let me tell you what it does, Michael Berry. It funds every liberal priority under the sun, DEI, transgender. It increases funding for government entities engaged in transgender ideology. And what it doesn't do, this is the more offensive thing, it does not fund real property tax relief. But the whole Austin Uniparty, not just the House, they're all jumping in. They want to take your surplus, that $24 billion of your money that we're just sitting on, that we already overtaxed from you, took from you, and we didn't need it. They want to give it to liberal Hollywood. We always say, don't California my Texas, but the Austin establishment, Michael, they want to Hollywood our Texas and spend $500 million of your dollars to fund liberal Hollywood. Michael, sometimes I wake up down here, I don't know if I'm in Austin or Sacramento, but actually thinking of that, if we were in Sacramento, maybe one thing better about Sacramento than Austin is at least the Democrats in Sacramento, they self-identify.
Yeah, at least you can pin it on the Democrats. Can you hold with us for just a moment?
I can do one more. You bet.
Yeah. What's important to understand, folks, is what a quorum is. I want to go back. It might sound procedural, but a quorum is the number of people you have to have in any governing body in order to do business. In other words, you can't run off and have 3 Major League Baseball players play and you hit a home run, you go, we won the World Series. We didn't even get a chance to show up. You can't just have a game without anybody knowing. That's what they did. They violated quorum. And the way they did it, this is dirty. Wait till you hear the story. Stay tuned. There are a few guys, Steve Toth, Mitch Little, Brian Harrison, who are every day sounding the clarion call because we don't know. You don't know what the Republicans who are in control are doing to sell us out, while we're assuming they're up there doing the right thing. And in fact, but for these few guys telling the story, we wouldn't know, and we would just assume that Republicans were representing us, and they're not. Brian Harrison, why don't you take just a moment and explain what they did to try to make it look like they had achieved a quorum from putting people in the seats and all of that?
Yeah, and for context, we have last Friday, we've been in session for over 2.5 months, and last Friday was the very first Friday we were even asked to show up and do work on the floor. The Speaker has sent us into unconstitutional, long vacation weekends, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day vacations every single week for 11-plus weeks. Last Friday was the first day we were asked to show up on the floor, and I walk in, and the Speaker was going to have us vote on maybe about 100 different resolutions, and I walk on the floor, and I don't see anybody. I mean, it's a barren wasteland on Friday morning, and next thing I know, the Speaker's up there gaveling down, and he says these words, "A quorum is present." Hey, Michael, for your folks listening, the Constitution of the state of Texas, something we took an oath to uphold and defend, it says the Texas House cannot conduct business unless at least 100 of the 150 were there. So I demanded a verification vote. He tried to ignore me 2 times. I had to almost storm the dais, storm the stage, and he got a little scared and said, okay, got it, I'll call a verification, which basically means we're going to do an actual roll call. And he had the clerks come out and do a roll call, and sure enough, out of 150 people who asked Texans to vote for them, to work hard to save our state, only 63 out of 150 bothered to even show up for work. Even less showed up to work the next day. I bet there weren't 40 people the next day, maybe not even 30. I think my staff counted around 28, actually, the next day. So I don't know how many Texans, those of you Texans, your job, or you're driving to work, or maybe you're working in your truck driving, if you don't show up for work 2 days in a row, you get fired. And let me tell you the worst part of this, Michael, it wasn't just the Democrats. The majority of the Republicans in the Texas House couldn't even be bothered to show up for work. So on the heels of him trying to break the Constitution, to do work without a quorum, after he broke the Constitution to have long weekends for months on end, after he put on the bill, the very first bill we debated, even we got 88 Republicans and thousands of Republican bills, the first bill he put on the floor was a radical Democrat bill. After he let the Democrats lawlessly write the budget in secret to grow government, I said, I've had enough. And I went to the floor yesterday and I demanded to vacate the chair. I made a motion to vacate the chair, to force a vote and say, you know what, we have no confidence in you. You cut a deal with Democrats. You've sold Texans downriver. And I make a motion to vacate you. And he turned my mic off 4 times. He wouldn't let me make the motion. But I will tell you, I'm very proud. You mentioned there's few people down here willing to fight. I do have to make a note of appreciation for my friend David Lowe, who was the only member of the Texas House willing to stand with me and sign on to that motion to vacate the chair. But I don't know why every Republican in Texas is not standing up to demand that this traitor who cut a deal with 50 Democrats to let the social Marxist leftist agenda move forward in the state of Texas. Every elected Republican in Texas, as far as I'm concerned, should be off the sidelines and in the battle for the future of Texas. Because in the Austin swamp, I'm going to be real straight about this. You're either visibly fighting the swamp or you are the swamp. And we've got a state to save.
It bears noting, State Representative Brian Harrison, that these folks who are not showing up for work, who are taking these long weekends the way most working people cannot do, that this is not a break from years of hard work. The legislature only meets every second year, and that too for 140 days. So it's not like this is a full-time job and they've been at it for 3 years. They haven't even been in session for 2 years. So when they are in session, they come, they do a Beyonce proclamation, and then they all go out and vacation again. This is ridiculous.
It's a social party. Imagine if you gave the most immature and drunk frat at any college the keys to the castle, the keys to the Texas government. That's basically what happens down here during session. There are first of all, we got too many Democrats that know they can't get elected as a Democrat, so they run as a Republicans. That's number one. And then number two, we got a ton of folks down here who just want the lapel pins. They want people to call them Mr. the Honorable. They want tickets to the suite at the University of Texas game. They want the cocktail hours. They want to hang out with the lobbyists and get wined and dined. They can't be bothered to do things like question state agencies about why they're spending billions of dollars on DEI, which is what I'm doing, by the way, but which is why the entire Austin Uniparty is doing their damnedest to silence me, because they do not want people to know what's happening behind their backs. I say this all the time, Michael. Transparency is like kryptonite in the swamp, and that's why they've got to shut conservative, vocal, movement conservative fighters.
Brian Harrison, you've never
down.
You've never been one who was shy. Why don't you mention a few, especially from the greater Houston area, which is where the largest portion of our audience right now is from, who are loyal Burroughs lieutenants, who are part of all this, we know it's not Steve Toth, we know it's not Mitch Little, we know it's not Brian Harrison, but who are the people?
Well, the people that voted with the Democrats from that area, and I don't have the maps all memorized, but offhand, I mean, I think we got people like, I think Lacey Hull voted for Burroughs. I think Mono de Ala voted for Burroughs. I'm trying to remember other folks down there. Sam Harless voted for Dustin Burroughs.
Will Metcalf.
He definitely voted for Dustin Burroughs. And here's the thing. What they're not doing, they're not voting for Dustin Burroughs. Let me tell you what that vote was. That was a vote for the 50 Democrats. That was a vote to give 50 Democrats control of the Texas House. There's no two ways around it. The Democrat caucus candidate for Speaker was Dustin Burroughs. So, and I don't like people even saying they voted for Burroughs, because Burroughs is a human being that puts the word Republican by his name, but he's selling out the brand and the principles. That vote, especially the House Rules package, which I call the Democrat Empowerment Act because it gave Democrats more power than they've ever had, those votes are votes to sell out, quite frankly, the voters who they work for, who want Republican leadership, who want conservative Republican leadership. And Texans, they've had years and years of many Republicans going home after voting for bigger government. Hey, get this, Michael. My friend Vance Gann and I, former Trump White House economist, we put out data a couple months ago. Shocking. The Texas government was actually smaller and growing slower when Democrats ran this state than since 2003 when we've been under all Republican control. And that's just a sad state. Republicans have got to become the party of small government and low taxes again.
State Representative Brian Harrison, thank you, sir.
Good to be with you. God bless Texas.
The Michael Berry Show.